Open my heart to want to know, so I can stand, so I can grow. My feelings must be to and fro. Open my heart to what you know. Open my eyes to what you see, to understand what I should be. My feelings get the best of me. Open my eyes to what you see. Open my ears to what you hear, so I can keep you very near. My feelings make it so unclear. Open my ears to what you hear. Open my heart to what you know, so I can stretch, so I can grow. My feelings must be to and fro. Open my heart to what you know. Open my heart to what you know.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. We cry, holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. This is holy ground. We're standing on holy ground. For the Lord is present, and where he is holy. This is holy ground. We're standing on holy ground. present, and where he is holy. We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in his presence on holy ground. You are holy God, a perfect and holy God. We will come before you with hearts made clean by Jesus' blood. You are holy God, a perfect and holy God. We will come before you with hearts made clean by Jesus' blood. We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in his presence. We are standing in his presence. We are standing in his presence on holy ground. Beneath the cross of Jesus, I fain would take my stand. The shadow of a mighty rock within a weary land, a home within the wilderness, a rest upon the way. From the burning of the noontide heat and the burden of the day. Oh, safe and happy shelter, oh, refuge, shrine, and sweet. Oh, trysting place where heaven's love and heaven's justice meet. As to the holy patriarch, that wondrous dream was given. So sings my Savior's cross to me, a ladder up to heaven.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, singing Hallelujah, Hallelujah. shall be given unto you. Sing and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. Singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
Well, here I am again. This is my 14th mission with Bosch, and that really is hard for me to believe because it just seems like yesterday I was up here for the first time saying, well, I just got back from Romania, but that was 14 missions ago. And this time I got to see it from a completely different view. Every other year had this lady, Barb Flower, who would organize everything, and so, you know, you just showed up at the airport, got on the plane, and everything fell into place, you know. The glasses were there, and the food was prepared, and places to stay, you know, it just magically appeared. Until this year when she said, Brenda, I'm in my 80s, my husband's not feeling well, and I'm not in the greatest of health. We need someone else to organize this. Would you do it? You know, in a moment of lapse of sensibility, I said yes. And then for 10 months I panicked, pretty much, and realized there's a whole lot of preparation that goes into one of these trips. First of all, I felt like I had 19 children because it was a team of 20 people, and I was the parent. And that was a little scary. But anyway, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the planning for it, my new perspective of what planning a Bosch mission is like. First of all, you have a booklet, and this is the Bosch Bible. In it, you have all of your documents, all of the copies of everyone's passports, the doctor's license copies, so that, you know, we can show the authorities that yes, these are actually licensed optometrists doing the work. How many glasses we're going to take, anything, emails from my contact down in Patzcuar, emails from Carlos, our tour guide, who I have to admit I was a little bit nervous about. Was he really going to be at the airport, or did he just take our money and run? So all of those things. I also found out that this is the reason you have children, because I discovered after writing up these documents that, you know, most of the TSA agents, or whatever they call them, customs agents down there, don't speak English. I don't speak Spanish, so we've got a little problem. So I need to have all these documents in Spanish. So I called Micah, and I said, how well do you know your Spanish teacher? And he said, well, he came through for me. He had a former student who happens to be majoring in Spanish in college, and she was more than willing to do this for me. So for a $25 Starbucks gift card, I got everything I needed. And then came the time that we needed to pack the glasses. Now, understand, we take anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 pairs of glasses with us, and sunglasses. And, you know, again, those just magically packed themselves in the boxes and in the red bags and took themselves to wherever we were going. No, that's not how it happens. So I made a trip to Pandora, Ohio on a Wednesday, and there were about 4 of us that packed 5,900 pairs of glasses. And trying to ascertain what you're going to need is a daunting experience. So we just started grabbing glasses and thought, well, okay, we usually don't have enough of the low power minuses, so we took everything Pandora had and packed those. And oh, we always need lots of readers, you know, those over-the-counter cheaters. So we packed tons and tons of those. Well, then it came to bifocals, and we're like, I don't know. So we just packed what we thought we would need, and as I'll tell you in a little bit, that it didn't matter what we packed, it would turn out that we didn't have what we needed. So, that's how that works. And then how much money do you take with you? So I called Barbara. I said, how much money do you think I should take with me? And she said, well, I don't know, whatever you think you're going to need. So I called Darlene, who is the treasurer. I said, how much money do you think I should take? I don't know. You have to pay for dinners and breakfasts and, whatever we can put on the credit card would be great. I'll get a credit card in your name so you can just use that. Well, that was a big help. So then I talked to our contact down in Mexico, and apparently there was somewhat of a disconnect in our conversation because she said, well, you'll need this much for transportation, and don't bring a lot of money with you. It's not really safe. Just whatever you think you're going to need. Well, with every other mission, especially in Central America, they are more than happy to take American dollars. And so, but I did know that they don't like big bills. So I had $3,000 with me and nothing bigger than a $20 bill. It's like a suitcase with me. So I got to Patzcuaro and Deborah says to me, oh no, they don't take American dollars here. And she said, well, don't you have pesos? And I said, no. And she said, well, don't you have an ATM? Because there are all kinds of ATMs around. You can just get pesos. I said, no, I have a credit card, but it's not an ATM. Oh. So now I have 20 hungry people, $3,000 in American dollars, and no pesos. I'm, a little panicked. Not too panicked yet. Thankfully, a couple of the people on the team talked me off the ledge. It's going to work. Well, as it turned out, Monday morning, Deborah came to me and said, you know what, I woke up in the middle of the night and I remembered that at my bank, I can take out as much as $400 in pesos per day. And I said, thank you, God. So I handed her money. She went to the bank. We had pesos to eat with, but it all worked out. So that part went pretty smoothly, but I have to tell you what happened at the airport. 9 of us left from the Cleveland airport. We had one leaving from Detroit. She had a bag of glasses with her as well as her personal luggage. I had one from Missouri, Katrina, 2 from Washington State, 2 from Florida, and then 2 of our team were already in Mexico. Oh, and 2 from Indianapolis. We were all except for the 2 that were already in Mexico, had to meet in Dallas. The Cleveland contingency had 50 minutes between flights, and of course 45 gates to get to. So I was a little nervous about that as well. Katrina had 40 minutes, and Angie had about the same amount of time, the one from Detroit. So, to tell you the truth, I'd completely forgotten about Angie. I knew that the 2 from Washington and the 2 from Florida had come the night before, so they were going to be there no matter what. They were going to be at the gate. We were running through the airport, getting on the little shuttle to take us to the right gate, and we get there, and so there's the 9 of us, the 2 from Florida, and the 2 from Washington State. Nobody else. And they're boarding. And I am like, this is not good. So I ran to the gate attendant and I said, look, and I actually told her 4, there are 4 more from our group that are not here yet. And she said, well, do you think they're going to make it? Hello? I said, I sure hope so. She said, well, give me their names and I'll watch for them. So we, go down the little gangplank to get on. And about the time we were almost to the getting ready to go on the plane. I happened to turn around and here's this girl going, and it was Angie, the girl from Detroit that I had completely forgotten about. And I'm like, oh, Angie, yes. And she was one of our doctors, so it was really good she was there. And about the time she's doing that, I looked behind her, and there were Haley, Elaine, and Austin. They were our Indianapolis group. Thank you, but where is Katrina? And so I said to Tim, wait here, I'm going to run back up the gangplank, and I'm going to go to that gate attendant and say, you've got to wait, because we've got one more coming. And just as I did that, I got almost to the edge. There she was, standing there, and we just kind of fell into each other's arms, like, oh, you made it. She was completely out of breath. Her plane had been delayed because they had to de-ice it, and she had like 10 minutes to go from her gate all the way across the airport to get to ours. But we all got on the plane, and I thought, okay, I can breathe now. So we get into Morelia, and now, again, I'm beginning to get a little bit nervous because now we've got customs. And I've been through this enough to know that sometimes they don't like what you're bringing in. And you have to show all the paperwork, and I'm thinking, okay, I have complete confidence in the student who has translated all of these documents. They're going to say the right things. And so we got all of our luggage. 2 pieces of luggage did not make it on the flight. One of them was a red bag full of glasses, and Angie's personal luggage did not make it. But I have to tell you that, we're grabbing all of our bags and we're getting ready to go through customs. They never even looked at my book. They never asked for one piece of information from us. They just waved us right through. So, but in the meantime, we had to go to American Airlines and tell them that 2 pieces of luggage didn't come through. They said, no problem. It'll be on tomorrow's flight. We'll deliver it to Patzcuaro for you. Everything will be fine, which of course it was not. When we called them, they said, oh no, customs wouldn't let us release it because Angie has to be there to show her ID. Well, kind of to back up, we had a hard time finding doctors on this flight anyway, or for this mission trip anyway, and so we only had 5. We usually have anywhere from 6 to 8 doctors, so we were really tight with doctors. Well, now we had to have a doctor take off a whole afternoon of clinics to go all the way back to Morelia to get the luggage, but we were going to make it work. She goes all the way back to Morelia, shows them the ID, and they said, oh, I'm sorry, your paperwork's not in order. I had her take all the information with her. And she said, what do you mean it's not in order? It's all right here, spelling out what we're doing here. No, we'll release your personal luggage, but you can't have the glasses. She was a little miffed. And so she just said, so you're telling me we're here helping your people with eye exams, giving free glasses. You're telling me that 200 of your people will not get glasses because you won't release this. And they said, yeah, basically that's what we're telling you. So what it came down to is they actually wanted a bribe. And, but they wouldn't tell her how much. They just said, no, you're gonna have to pay an import tax. And she said, well, how much? Well, we don't know. So we left the red bag there and said, forget it. As it turned out, we didn't really need them anyway. And they did release it on our way home, so we did get to bring the glasses home. Anyway, that was just all that happened before we even got to see one patient, and that was the whole reason we were there for all the prep was for our clinics. The clinics were really neat. We had them in 3 different cities. We had 2 in Patzcuaro, 1 in Santa Clara de Cobre, which is called Coppertown, and the other one in an unpronounceable name that started with a T. And that's about all I can tell you because I tried and practiced, and I still can't pronounce it. In 4.5 days of clinics, we saw 2,100 people. So that was good. And on Monday, we got a little bit of a late start. We usually like to start between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. It was about 9:30 when we actually started. This is the first clinic area that we started at. Kind of got our bearings, got everything set up. We worked 10 hours. We saw over 550 people. And at the end of the day, Christina Fox, who is our lead doctor on this, went to Deborah and said, "This cannot and will not happen again. We cannot work 10 hours. It's too much." And she said, "I understand, it was the first day, we'll get it organized, it'll be better." So Tuesday we were also in Patzcuaro, same place, everything was already set up. We decided that we would open the gates at 8:30, that way doctors would be starting to see patients right at 9. At 7:30 that evening we finished. And so it was another 10-hour day. We were pretty exhausted, but really everybody was in good spirits, and they're troopers. If you go on these trips, it's you're going to work. Wednesday and Thursday were better. Wednesday we went to the unpronounceable city, and this is a picture of where we were. No, that's Coppertown actually, but anyway, had great clinics there as well, and saw well over 500 people those days. So on Thursday we went to Coppertown, Santa Clara de Cobre, and it was really neat because before we started clinics, we set everything up, and then we walked about 3 blocks over, and we were treated to a demonstration of how they actually make the copper or decorations and all the ornaments and things that they make. And there was this humongous copper bathtub that was just, it was awesome. And it was all handmade there, and they gave us this wonderful demonstration on how they do this. But the first thing we noticed, being an optical group, was no eye protection. They're working around this firing up this copper, and then they take these big mallets and whack on it. No eye protection. We're all like, we'll be seeing you later. But we decided at the start of the day that, we were going to kind of cut back a little bit because there were some lovely things at this copper retail store, and we thought, if we quit a little early, we can hightail it over there and do some shopping. So we all agreed that we would only do 400 eye exams that day. And I think if you go on, it's just some pictures of some wonderful people that we saw there. But our 400th our 400th patient, I hope we can find her here, is just a beautiful little girl. She was 4 or 5 years old. There she is. This is our 400th patient that day. This little girl is a -18. Now, if you wear glasses, you have some idea of what that is. I had emailed my sister, and we're in kind of a chat group with her daughter and 2 sons, and I said, we just saw this little girl, 5 years old. She's a -18, and Heather emailed back and said, I'm a -10. I can't see anything without my contacts or glasses. I can't imagine. Glasses are going to change this little girl's life. I can't even explain the difference this is going to make, and especially discovering that this young will really give her a chance at life. This is why we go. These are the people that we want to see. And all of us stopped and said, imagine if we had stopped at number 399 and not seen this little girl. So we were really thrilled and humbled by the fact that, we were going to cut this day short so we could go buy some copper, but thankfully we saw this little girl. She was with her mother and her grandmother, And by the way, this is Dr. Christina Fox, the lead OB, standing with her. And her grandmother was just so grateful. She just beamed and just, kept telling us how thankful she was and asked God to be with our travels and just thanked us over and over and over again for coming, because this is going to change her granddaughter's life. And they had no other means of getting those for her. It was very humbling. And I have to tell you that our translators this year were just awesome. Most of them were expatriates from the United States, although I had one translator from Switzerland, who was very interesting. And one of the young men who was a translator, Alan, asked, well, who pays for you to come? And I said, well, actually, we pay our own way, although I have to say, you have been very generous, and you know who you are, in helping me to go on these. But for the most part, we pay our own way to go, and he was just totally surprised, and he said, you're amazing. He said, I'm surprised that you would come and do this for us. And he said that, we were an example to him to go out and do things for other people. So that made me feel good. And while you're doing this, you never know who's watching or what other people see. And Deborah, our coordinator down there, and some of the other translators observed that. She said, even though we knew you had long days and you were tired, she said, we watched and we saw that you treated everyone with grace and with smiles. And that's part of the reason I like going on these as well, is because I always feel like I'm an ambassador for the United States. I want people to see what real Americans are like, not just what they see in the media or hear on the TV or the radio, but what real Americans are like. So just briefly, my job this year was different as well. Usually what I do is the fitting of the glasses once they've gone through the whole process. But we had Katrina, who's an optician, and Ron Myers, who's been on many, many of these trips and has become very adept at adjusting glasses. And so they didn't really need me there. And being the coordinator, I had all the power. So I got to tell people what they were going to do. And I had assigned Bill Campbell, a retired optometrist from Jefferson, to do referrals and specials. Specials are, if we don't have the glasses that they need, we take down all the information and we bring them back with us to the States, and they are made up here in the States, shipped back down there and distributed to the people. But it became apparent very quickly that he really was needed in the dispensing area, because as an optometrist, he could interpret the prescriptions and tweak them as needed. And so he was over there, so it fell to me to be the specialist. So I did the cataract referrals and the special glasses. Now, to give you perspective, last year we did 50 specials. This year, I did 194 in 4 days and 54 cataract referrals. We found it, I don't know if it was a genetic anomaly or exactly what was going on, but we found a lot of people with a very high astigmatism, like in the -4, -5 astigmatism. And so we, as I said before, it didn't matter what we packed, it wasn't the right thing. We just didn't have anything even close to that. And so we decided we would just make these up. So I took measurements and found frames that we could use for them, and we brought all those orders back with us. In addition to that, we saw 3 people who had keratoconus, a suspected melanoma, a detached retina, and histoplasmosis. So, as well as many cases of pterygia, and that comes because, as I say, these people who are working in the copper foundries were not using any eye protection or, anything, and so, they were getting debris in their eyes, and just the dryness in the environment. And also, one of the villages very close by is a major supplier of avocados, which I have to say the walk there was to die for. But anyway, someone has said that when they spray their fields with fertilizer or with pesticides, these people don't use any kind of eye protection. And so that all plays into bad things in your eyes. But I wanted you to meet a sweet, sweet lady named Sophia Talavera. This sweet, adorable lady is 86 years old. She's about 4.5 feet tall, and I just fell in love with her. She was at my table to get a cataract evaluation, but bless her heart, she didn't know her phone number, and she didn't know her address. So while we were waiting to find somebody who knew her and could help us with that information, she just sat there and chatted away. Of course, it was all in Spanish, but we had a translator there, and basically what she was telling us is that, you know, she lived in that area all of her life, and she had 5 children she had raised, and they all live nearby as well, but you know, they're busy with their lives and their families, and I think she just really wanted somebody to talk to. So she just kept chatting, and finally she said, you know, sometimes I talk to God and say, take me with you, I'm done. It was just so sweet, it just melted my heart. Another thing that's very humbling is to sit there and look into these weather-worn faces and weary eyes, and then to check down on their paperwork and find out they're the same age as you are. And this kind of happened, to me it was a little bit of a funny story. A woman and her mother came to my desk, and the mother was going to have cataract referral. And I noticed that she was the same age as I am. So I told my translator, hey, you know, you gotta mention it. Her mom's the same age as I am, you know. You're always looking for something to connect with people. And I thought, well, that's just an item of conversation. So we went through the procedure, you know, getting her referral done. And as they were leaving, the daughter looked at the translator and just said something to her. And they smiled, and she walked away. And I said, well, what did she say? And she said, Americans take better care of their skin. And I thought it was cute, but then I thought, you know, no, that's not the case at all. We just are very privileged people, and we should be grateful for that. I'm going to wrap this up because I know Tim has some things to say too. But so at the end of the clinics, we have to decide what we're going to do with all these specials. And like I said, we had 194 this year to have made up. And so Mark Pfeiffer, who's an optometrist in the Sandusky area, said, look, I'll take them back and I'll contact my lab and see what they can do for us. And a lot of times the labs are very good about giving us a pretty good price break on things. And so he was going to reach out to his lab, Wallman Optical, who he's worked with for many, many years. And I just want to close by reading to you his email and then Wallman's response as soon as I find it. Hey Brian, I'm just back from a mission trip to Mexico. The population we serve must have some type of genetic issue regarding myopia levels because we had many we were unable to serve with recycled eyewear we took. We had frames for those folks and planned like last year to make lenses. Wallman did those for us last year at no charge, which I thought was way generous. But they're around 180 this year and only 50 last year. Bosch does have some funds for that need. Maybe you'd like to split it up with another lab. Let me know what you think. Thanks, Mark. And here is Wallman's response. As a company that annually contributes 5% of our net to charitable causes we and those we support believe in, we've decided to pick up the cost of the 180 pairs you're sending our way. It's a way of saying thank you and passing it forward. That was tremendous and very humbling, but it also is a validation of what we are trying to do. And again, showing that Americans are some of the most generous people that you'll ever want to meet. So, thank you.
I just have a few observations and interesting information, I think, that I'd like to share with you, and then a challenge at the end. First of all, Brenda did an amazing job of organizing this, and one of the features was we happened to be going there during the time when the monarch butterflies are in Mexico, and this is the region that they come to, up in the mountains. Now, where we were staying was around 7,000 feet above sea level, and we hiked up to 11,000 feet. And boy, I'll tell you, I felt it. The first slight incline up, and I'm going, what's wrong with me? I thought I was decent shape. I need Dan to help me a little bit more. And I realized what it was. Once our bodies got warmed up to it and adjusted, it was better. But 11,000 feet above sea level, if you think about that, that's close to 2.5 miles. We did, anyways, up there the butterflies, they form these clusters on these, they are short-needled pine trees. And as we were climbing this hill in the bus, Brenda and I, taking the humble place in the back seat, and this bus kind of had steps up in it because there was a luggage section in the back. And so we took seats in the very back, and there was no room to move. And we were in that bus for, I don't know, 4 hours maybe. We're not going to do that again. Not only could I almost not walk, but my ankles swelled up. I couldn't move my foot to exercise or get any kind of circulation. And oh man, so I learned a lesson from that one. And we had a nice bus too. That's the only part that I don't like about these trips, is usually we have to travel great distances over rough roads in cramped buses. And you don't have any control, of your destiny and your situation. But that's a small price to pay, The local folks who live there travel that way all the time. I'm a wimp, but what can I say? But the Butterfly Sanctuary was in Tlalpujahua. It took me a week to learn to say that. And it was quite an amazing experience. The butterflies were flying. As we're going along this pathway up where you could get a very good viewpoint, there are butterflies on the trees, and there are little piles of dead butterflies. It looks like they've been arranged on the ground. I got a couple of photos of that as well. So that was pretty neat. But something that impressed us was the people. They come early in the morning, they have to wait. We register them, we try to give them seats and make them comfortable, but they patiently wait. They were probably the most grateful people that we have served at any of these mission trips, and the most humble, and the least demanding. Every now and then you'll run into somebody that doesn't like the color of the frames that you're giving them. Or I remember one guy in Honduras last year, he had a very simple prescription. It was like a +2 or 2.5, and essentially readers. And so I got him a nice looking pair of men's frames with that exact prescription in it, and he couldn't see with it. And so I tried a stronger one and a weaker one. No, he couldn't see in it. And finally, through a translator, he told me, he said that yesterday my friend was here and he got a square pair of glasses and he can see really well through those. I said, I get it. I went back to the original prescription. I found a rectangular pair of glasses and he tried them on and he could see perfectly with them. Actually, that one was hilarious. But every now and then there'll be some young ladies, and typically they'll either have their mother or a friend with them and a cell phone in hand. And so they take a photo and they look at themselves. You know, we had none of that in this one. Somebody, I think it was Mark Twain, that said that travel will destroy your prejudices. It's a more cogent quote than that, but we were in a part of Mexico I didn't even know existed, the state of Michoacan. And it's kind of in the central south or west part of Mexico. And as Brenda said, this is not geared to American tourists. They don't take American dollars. Most places prefer American dollars that we've been to. These guys, they don't take it. And nobody in the hotel, nobody in the restaurants we went to spoke English. And so I decided that my practice was going to be, I'm just going to order something that I have no idea what it is. And it probably won't kill me and I'll discover something new. And it worked out well every time. One time I got meatballs. Now, did you know that Mexican food includes meatballs? They're made with rice. They're very much like the inside of a stuffed pepper. It was delicious. Anyways, we were in an old area. Patzcuaro was built by the Spanish in the early 1500s, but actually its history goes back to 1100 AD. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But their attitude was just so marvelous, their patience. You know, it's one of the great things we get to do is simply to gently work with people and to smile at them. And you can tell you're making a connection with people. And Brenda and I had a revelation along the way, you know, when learning Spanish and listening to people talk, that the word adios, everybody knows adios means goodbye. You know what that means? You break it down, it's Dios. Dios is God. It essentially means God be with you. That is built into their language. You know, several years ago I learned to say God bless you. Dios te bendiga. And I often said that to people, especially some of the older ones that were worn and weary, you know, that have been through rough times. I just had the sense that not only do we want you to see better, but we want you to feel better overall. If we can bless you somehow, we want to do that. And in a way, going this way is a vehicle to be able to express human compassion on a one-on-one basis with people. So we came away impressed with it, with these adorable older ladies who sometimes they just give you a big hug, just spontaneously when they were getting up. And it was wonderful. And as Brenda mentioned, the large number of Americans who are living in Mexico. Somebody told us that 2 million Americans spend all or part of the year in Mexico. Many of them have got Mexican citizenship to make it a little easier, but they keep their U.S. citizenship. You know, the cost of living is low. One night, for our meal, the place we'd been eating was closed, and so this little hotel we were staying with, by the way, the building that we stayed in was a 400-year-old building from the 1600s. And it was the hotel. And it was charming. It was clean. We didn't come home with any bed bugs as far as I know. But there was a little restaurant. First night we got there, it was late. They wouldn't let us in because we didn't have reservations. And we found out it was an Italian restaurant. So Wednesday night we decided, okay, let's just eat there. And we decided we'd order 8 pizzas, large pizzas, and they were that big. Everything from a Hawaiian pizza to like a meat lover's pizza to pepperoni to vegetable pizzas. I mean, 8 pizzas, and everybody got something to drink. And it cost us less than $5.50 a person when we averaged it out. The pizzas, those huge pizzas, they were 135 pesos, which is about $7.50. So you can eat cheaply there. And that was a restaurant and a hotel. You know, they're always a little bit higher. And there were other vendors and places to eat. So I see why some of these Americans go there and retire. You can live on half as much money. But the great thing was, these people didn't just go to get away from the snow. They have developed a deep love and respect for the people who live there. And they keep in touch with each other. And so Deborah Peacock, the woman Brenda mentioned, our local contact, has a dual citizenship. And she sent out an email to them and told them that we were coming and asked for any who would come to help in various ways, including translators. And I think over 20 people offered to help, and they were marvelous translators. They knew the language well, they understood the culture well, and had a deep love for the people. It was just perfect. And I want to teach you a Spanish phrase that I learned. It's Sally Valley. It's spelled valley, but you say the V's as B's. So repeat it after me. Sally Valley. Once more. Sally Valley. Okay, very good. When I was talking to Mary, this American who's living down there, translating for us, I said, you know, when someone says gracias and I say de nada, it just doesn't seem like enough. Because de nada, I said, it means simply, it's nothing. That's what it means. It's no big deal. It wasn't a big thing for me to do. It's nothing. Forget it. You know, how do I say you're welcome or whatever? She said, well, you can say Sally Valley. And I said, what does that mean? She said, it means okie dokie. So you've learned to say okie dokie in Spanish. That's become my favorite word in Spanish now. During the week, a fellow showed up, and we found out that he was an anthropologist who knew some of the people who were helping us. And he offered to, on the last day, in the afternoon when we were done, to give us a short walking tour of Patzcuaro, Mexico. Because he knows the history of it and the cultural history of it very well. And so he did, and it was fascinating. And the first thing we did is we climbed up this incline, this road. And by the way, the road was made of cobblestones. And we learned that the cobbles in the cobblestones were probably from 1000 or 1100 AD. That when the Spanish came, they tore down the pagan temples and the pyramids, and they used the stones to pave their streets. These are volcanic stones. And it's just interesting that the municipality of Patzcuaro was doing some infrastructure repair. And they were repaving the street around the big square close to where we were staying. And they were relaying the cobbles. They reused the ones they took up. And these were those very stones that were once part of a pagan pyramid. So anyways, he told us about this. He said, the incline we're going to go up to the Basilica of Our Lady of Health. And it is built on the site. Well, I have to tell you about this first. if you can see this well enough, these are our children dressed up with masks that make them look like old people, and they've each got canes. And we were fortunate enough to be able to watch them dance one day. We just happened to catch it. Because at the square, they have this dance, and they pass the hat for it. But it's a tradition there. And they do some of this stuff, and they have these shoes that have like wooden soles on them that clap when they dance, and they're brilliant, they're very talented. Well, the history of this, he told us about, was when the Spanish came, the indigenous people quickly realized that the Spanish didn't work very hard. They kind of enslaved the people, the native people who were there, and so they perceived that the Spanish were lazy, and they acted like old people who could not work hard. And so this folk dance developed out of that, and it has become a tradition for all this time. So it really was designed to mock the Spanish. I've got some video of it too. That's a lot of fun. If you want to see, we've got lots of more photos and some videos. If you ever want to see those, just let us know, and we will bore you to death with them. But not here. Anyways, we climbed up there. We went. The first thing we saw was the Basilica of Our Lady of Health. Now, we had heard about this basilica, this cathedral, this church, if you will. It's in the center of Patzcuaro. It's like the featured one. And we learned that it was built on the remains of a Puripechan. That was the native peoples, not Mayans, not Aztecs, but Puripechans in this region. It was built on the remains of their ceremonial worship center. And so when the Spanish came with their Catholic faith, they came as missionaries as well as conquerors, and they brought Christianity to this area. But it's not that simple, because the Virgin of Health is the patron saint of the Michoacan state, this greater region that Patzcuaro is in. And this anthropologist explained that the people consider her a goddess, that she replaced the goddess of the Puripechan pagan religion. Mary did. And so she is their goddess now. And Brent and I are saying, what? And some of the folks on our team are Catholic, and they're saying, oh, okay. And we're saying, what? And early in the week, the facility we were using was owned by the church, and in the entranceway of it, there was a painting of the Virgin of Healing, the Virgin of Health. Now, here is a view from the inside of that basilica that I was telling you about, and if you notice something, there is an image. It's a statue of Mary. Now, almost always Jesus, as Dan mentioned, still on the cross, is in that position in the Catholic Church. Jesus is way up here toward the ceiling. You have to really look to see. He's smaller than Mary is, and he's way up there. She gets the prominent place here. It's Mary who is right over the altar, not Jesus. And this anthropologist, who's a scientist and very objectively telling us about this, he says, oh yes, this church is full of pagan symbols. He said, in fact, if you notice that Mary, and this is that painting we first saw, has a crescent moon down here. That's a pagan symbol. And the Mary that was in this basilica, she has a big cape that goes out behind her. And the legend is that if you walk under that cape, you'll receive healing. We did not do that. Some of the group did. We weren't going to have anything to do with that. When I asked our guide if there were any evangelical churches, any Protestant or Pentecostal churches, he knew exactly what he was saying. Oh, he said, yes, there are. And they're growing. He said they do a lot to care for the people, unlike what the Catholic Church does here. He said they do things like you guys are doing. He said also, there are many church festivals that if you're a Catholic here, you're supposed to take part in. And they always involve a lot of drinking and drunkenness. And he says a lot of the people are trying to get away from that. And so they're drawn to the evangelical churches because of that. It's a refuge from the drunken festivals. It took me a little while to absorb all of this. I've been thinking of it since then. And actually, what we encountered reminded me of ancient Israel. I want to show you a passage, and it's in 2 Kings chapter 23. When Josiah instituted reforms in Judah, the southern kingdom. Now keep in mind, when Israel was divided into two kingdoms, Israel on the north, or also called Ephraim, that was always the most secular one. It was the one that had the most alliances with pagan governments, and just went astray much more often. The kings were more wicked. Judah was a little bit closer to God's plan. But this is the southern kingdom. This is Judah we're talking about. Let me just read this to you. The king, who was Josiah, ordered Hilkiah the high priest, the priest next in rank, and the doorkeepers, to remove from the temple of the Lord all the articles made for Baal and Asherah. Baal was one of the Canaanite gods. Asherah was the goddess of the region around Babylon. And all the starry hosts, he burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of the Kidron Valley and took the ashes to Bethel. He did away with the pagan priests appointed by the kings of Judah. The kings of Judah were paying pagan priests to burn incense on the high places of the towns of Judah and on those around Jerusalem. Those who burn incense to Baal, to the sun and moon, to the constellations, and to all the starry hosts. He took the Asherah pole from the temple of the Lord to the Kidron Valley outside Jerusalem and burned it there. Go to the next one, you can see it too. He ground it to powder and scattered the dust over the graves of the common people. He also tore down the quarters of the male shrine prostitutes, which were in the temple of the Lord, and where women did weaving for Asherah. That's what happened. What? The nation named after God, Israel, had adopted such vile pagan practices. Baal was one of the most vile of the pagan gods, who demanded human sacrifice. And God's people had adopted this. And the kings had been a part of it. You know, it's easy for us to click our tongues at what we discovered in Patzcuaro. That intermixture of Christianity and paganism. But as I was thinking about this, I thought, you know, we ought to ask ourselves some questions. Is what I believe based on what God says, what the Bible says, or what I've picked up from tradition and culture? I know Dan mentioned something about that. You know, he grew up in a Christian home. The time came where it was almost like a faith crisis, where he had to ask himself the questions and dig for it himself. Dave Corp the same way. And by the way, both of these brothers did a magnificent job. I am so grateful to them. But I know Dave, he was brought up in a Christian home, but was taught some things that were not from the Bible. And was faced with this, and his heart was open enough to listen to what God had to say. And so we got to ask ourselves, is my religion based on what I know God says, or is it partly based on superstition? You know, we've got so many common superstitions in our culture. If you break a mirror, you're going to have, 7 years of bad luck. If a black cat walks across your path, you're going to have bad luck. Boy, if that were true, Brenda and I would have a constant black cloud hanging over our heads because we have a black cat. You know, actually, because of him, maybe that superstition is true. No. Or how many of you would walk under a ladder without having any qualms about it? You know, it's probably not a smart thing to do to walk under a ladder, but it's not going to put a curse on you. Or I encountered this one a few years ago in doing a wedding. Oh, we can't get married on the hour. It has to be on the half hour. Really? They said, they didn't know where that came from, but I did a little research and I found out. It's because the hand is moving down from the hour. But at the half hour, it's on its way up. Okay. All right. Well, you know, I've even seen a biblical information, biblical creation of God used superstitiously. Angels are used by New Age religion. If you believe in angels, do you know what the Bible says about angels? That not all angels are these sweet and white-winged things, but they're ferocious warriors. That there are protectors and they're God's warriors to minister to his people. Yeah, see, there's a lot of mythology going on in our culture in the name of Christianity. Do you believe in karma? That doesn't come from the Bible, let me tell you. That comes from the other side. But the question comes, what is really the basis of my security? Is it because I avoid black cats and ladders and broken mirrors? Is it because I have a healthy savings account? Is it because I have home security? Is it because a certain political party is in office? Is it because I'm a U.S. citizen? You realize all those things are fragile and temporary and totally irrelevant to the security we have to be seeking. Now, some of those things are a blessing, or they're just a happenstance based on where we were born. Where does my real security come from? What if those were taken away from me? Would I have anything left to stand on? I suggest that our confidence, that our hope ought to be on something really substantial, knowing who God really is, and having the confidence that in Christ, God paid for our sins, and that Jesus has been, as Romans 1:5 says, has been certified the Son of God by his resurrection from the dead. That's where our confidence is. And with that, we can say, nothing can harm me. I grew up saying that little sing-song song. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It wasn't true even then. But we ought to be able to say, with God as my Father, nothing can ultimately hurt me. Oh, I may suffer, but nothing will hurt me in a way that really counts. Another way to put it is when God says, I will never leave you or forsake you. You see, anything placed above God is idolatry. It is worshiping created things, including people, instead of God alone. Anything that we put more confidence in than we put in God is an idol to us. Jesus put it pretty bluntly when he said, anyone who loves his father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves his son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who does not take his cross and follow me. Now you start to get what he's really saying here. It's not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it. And whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And really, if we understand who God really is, we're not even going to be tempted to put our confidence in anything other than God. Because we know that it's like sitting in a chair that is just about to fall apart. It's like walking on a bridge that's having chunks of it fall to the ground even as you approach the bridge. If we know who God really is, then we know that he is the only one that we can ultimately trust, will never change, and the only one who can save us from the eternity of suffering.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now been found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and raised my fears freely. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and strife, I am already gone. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far. The joy of the Lord will be my strength. I will not falter, I will not faint. He is my shepherd, I am not afraid. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord will be my strength. I will not waver, walking by faith. He will be strong to deliver me safe. The joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord, the joy of the Lord is my strength. When we've been there